It's Friday, and once again, of course, it is Santa podcast time. Luke and I are going to be chatting to two guests, actually three tonight, with the view of finding out what they've been up to in the current situation, of course, their racing history, how they've got in racing, how they got into racing, and of course, we're going to dig deep and just find those amusing stories as well. First of all, I've got to say hi to my good buddy Luke. Luke, how you doing, mate? Good to see you once again. Oh, God, we want to go racing, though. We really want to go racing.
Yeah, we really do. And even as racing starts across Europe, I see a few events popping up and I'm really chomping at the bit. This week, we've got a couple of guests and obviously we're going to stir it up again with double the names, two Nicks. So this is going to be confusing as ever, but I'm looking forward to another great Friday night show.
Indeed, it's going to be great. Right, well, let's find out who we've got on tonight's show. First up tonight, this guy, I can only ever remember driving one car in the last 12 years. He's probably driven stuff before that, though, but he's got a very successful race team as well. He's had 3 dragsters, I think, in the current stable. 2 of them have won championships in the hands of Brad Jackson and, of course, Chris Parker. It is none other from Nick Good Motorsports. It's the governor himself. Nick Good. Nick, how you doing, mate? Great to see you. Welcome to the Santa podcast.
Hi, Colin. Hi, Luke. Good to be here.
So how's life treating you, mate? Obviously, that's been a bit different, hasn't it?
It's just been difficult trying to keep yourself occupied, really. The cars didn't really need a great deal doing to them, so we've just done a few bits and pieces of them, done the trucks, went through everything with them, and really, we've spent a lot of time at home. The break from the pressure of work, and to a certain degree the racing, there's a lot of pressure with keeping 3 cars. You know, that's probably in a certain way done us a bit of good.
Well, we'll talk about the team in a bit more detail later on, but let's bring in our other guests, of course. Now, these 2 guys have basically been responsible for me emptying my bank account on a very regular basis. Every time I go and see the guys, it's, oh, Cole, you've got to try this, you've got to try that. Yeah, of course, it's none other than it's the Williams brothers. Dan and Nick Williams, how you doing, guys? Great to see you. And of course, welcome to the Santa podcast.
Hi, Nick. Hi, Nick.
So how you doing, guys? Have you been keeping busy?
Very. Every day, long days. I think during the period of this lockdown, we obviously had all members of staff were off. We furloughed all of them, purely, just health and safety and all of that. But it did mean, because me and Dan lived next door to each other, we were still okay to come to work. So it was just me and Dan for like 9 weeks. And then we've gradually brought other guys in, other members of staff. It's kind of one at a time over the last few weeks. But yeah, it's been busy. Lots of inquiries, lots of cars being built, a couple of nice restorations. And we've had a good time with it.
Good. Well, we'll find out a bit more about that later on. But Luke, we've still got the governor floating around. I'm sure Keith will be joining us at some stage. He says he's going to stay out of the show this week, but let's hope he's got some information for us. What do you reckon?
He's always there listening in, and I'm pretty sure he's got a good update because, let's be honest, every Friday night people are sitting home going, is there going to be an update? Are we going to hear something about racing? So, Keith, what have you got to tell us? Give us some good news, please.
Hi, Luke. Hi, Colin. Good news. Well, I think we have got some good news. I seem to have made a few statements about the difficulty that SantaPod's gone through over the last 11 weeks, which you don't need to be a rocket scientist to work out. But we are on the move towards, shall we say, good news. The government are certainly lifting lots of the restrictions. And I'm pleased to say some of those restrictions pertaining to the leisure industry. We know that leisure parks and theme parks are going to be allowed back in July. Zoos were banned for 4 days, and now zoos are going to be allowed in. And it's all based really on the numbers of people that are allowed on site and the social distancing and the health parameters that you adhere to that would allow us to move forward. So we think, without a doubt, we will start some form of events in July. They won't be major events. They will be within government restrictions of social distancing, but I do see from early in July us beginning to do kind of protest sessions, run what you brungs, and we won't actually formulate any definite thing for the next 6 weeks or 7 weeks because we don't know. There could be changes from the government again yet. We may find there's changes in August that we never believed were possible. So at the moment, we're just trying to look at July as a month of where we will introduce low-key events. And hopefully I'll have more news for that in about a week's time.
Oh, that sounds very, very encouraging indeed. Keith, thank you ever so much indeed. And let's hope that Keith keeps popping into the show, but then let's hope he doesn't. What do you reckon, Luke?
Yeah, he's always welcome. But like you said, they're not going to be major events. I'm sorry. Every Run What You Brung is going to be a major event. Everyone is so eager to get on the track, and everyone is now running out of jobs to do on the car. There's even people I know who have finished the car who have then now just been twiddling their fingers going, you know what, I'm going to do something else. So I'm looking forward to getting a date out there, and then people can know when they can get their cars on track. Well, obviously it'll be certain people because we'll be limited to a certain amount of people. So it's going to be a good fight to be first on the track.
Oh, most definitely. And I know Dan and Nick, just going back to you on this one, you've got a few cars that you want to get testing straight away, really, haven't you?
Yeah, we have. You know, obviously we unveiled the 55 2 months ago now, and yeah, we're certainly itching to get that down the track and start doing some testing and some setting up with that car and see how it goes.
Brilliant. And Nick Good, well, your cars are all ready to go. Will you have a go and do some sort of pre-testing, I suppose, is the thing? What will be the plan for you?
Yeah, it really depends on the limits that are put on, you know, with regard to social distancing. I need 3 people to run my car. I can't strap the car myself in the car myself, so
I think I can answer that for you, Nick. We're not certain at the moment, and I can't make a definitive decision, but the indications are we would probably have up to 6 people in the team, the driver and 5 people. Now, there'll be some teams in the lower levels will be happy to have a driver and 2 people or 3 people. The higher up the classification classes we go, it may need more, but there will definitely be driver and a certain amount of crew allowed.
yeah. Oh, that's good news. That's fantastic. Yeah. If we've given something, you know, that we can work within, we'll be there for definite.
Well, you might be all interested to hear. We've got a bit of a title for these events when they happen. It's going to be back on track days.
Oh, yeah, like that.
With regard to Run What You Brungs, and obviously, Nick, you've got a high horsepower car that is capable of going down into the 6s. Some people might go, oh, Run What You Brung, it's not ideal. But we do have, on most Run What You Brungs, we do have a range of vehicles, and even some weekends, we have top fuel turn up. Our guys at SantaPod Raceway will always know who's on site and give specific preparation to certain cars. Because obviously, it's not just about getting traction, it's about your safety and the driver's safety. So I'm looking forward just to seeing normal Run What You Brung, but with some really high horsepower cars coming in for a mix. Because there are people that come to Run What You Brung who have never been to a major event. And when they do see a big V8 coming around the corner, and I'm in the tower and I'm like, okay, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a big car firing up around the corner. It's fingers in your ear time. And they're all sitting there going, nah, soon as you come under the tower, even with your car, Nick, hit the throttle, and it's literally like a Mexican wave of people just going, wow, and they're just blown away. And then I really hope to think that those people then, we'll be saying, oh, there's an event coming up in a few weeks' time. I really hope to think that then they go, actually, let's go to a big event.
Our planning, and again, this is not finite decisions here, but our planning is to have 2 types of events. One with race cars only for race cars, and one Run What You Brung for street cars. Now, again, Run What You Brung, you're quite right. You could see race cars turning up, but there will be a difference between the prep on the track for what's going to be the equivalent of the old Pro Peak, a pro test session, as opposed to a pure Run What You Brung. And there is going to be a difference. So we aren't going to open up with all Run What You Brungs. There will be perhaps 1 week of Run What You Brungs and 1 week of a pro test session, which race cars only.
We know there's going to be hundreds and hundreds of people that will be itching to get back on track.
To be honest, I've been watching Sanders drag race on Facebook. I've been watching Alan Reinhardt with toy cars. So I'll take anything.
Yeah, I think you're right, mate. I think you're right. Going to kick things off with Nick Good. Nick, once again, it's great to see you. And of course, pictures of the Team Dragsters in the background there. But you are the quickest team member of Nick Good Motorsports. and pretty much every time you come around the corner, it's either 6.9 or more recently 6.8 has pretty much been permanently etched on the back wing of the Dragster, and then you just change the last digit. You've got one very consistent race car.
Yeah, that's something we've developed, over the last 10 years to get, where we are. We had a bit of early success with it, but I think that was more luck than judgment, to be perfectly honest. It's easy to make a blown car go quicker. You can just put some more air in, more fuel, a bit more time, and then you can gain a couple of tenths, no problem. But we found that once we started dipping into the 6.7s, the consistency went away. And 6.8 with that car is really his happy spot. It's his sweet spot. We know we can sort of run pretty close to a dial-in.
Nice. Obviously, Colin said at the start you've got 3 Dragsters in the stable. Have you ever had a door car, say, or have you always been into Dragsters?
I've always been into Dragsters. From my point of view, it's cheaper to get a 9-second Dragster than it is a door car. You're moving less metal. The car actually, although it's been chopped around a lot over the years, was the original Hemi Hunter car. So that car has got an immense amount of history with it, and it's a bit of an ugly duckling, but it works. That car works, and in that first season, I came second in the SPRC Championship, and that wasn't through my driving skills or anything else. That car was so predictable, and the first 2 meetings of the year, we were #1 qualifier straight out. And that was a new combination, with the engine and what.
You're making it sound way too easy to drive a Dragster.
It was.
We got
too
some
easy.
Doorcar boys in the other corner, and they're going to be taking the mick out of you if you're making it sound too easy.
Well, it was. I thought, well, how difficult can this be? I didn't go loads of rounds. I didn't win any events. I didn't get to the semi-finals, but that car was absolutely fantastic. We fitted a Ron's toilet methanol injection system on the car, because at that time we decided, you've got Derek Flynn and Mark Clavel, they run and blow methanol in Super Pro, and we thought, yeah, that's where we really would like to. You want to do that again?
Your set is falling apart.
I'll tell you what, I put these up last night and came down this morning, and the whole lot had come down.
Who fell out the shot? So, Williams Bros.
We know your cars. They are immaculately prepared. They are stunning to look at. But what everybody loves about your cars is the wheelies. Quite simple as that. You can see everybody getting their cameras out, ready for a wheel standing launch off the line. But going to rewind the clocks back a little bit. I think, Dan, you had the first, shall we say, bump scraper quite a few years back. Why on earth did you run a wheelie bar? That would have been a good idea then, wouldn't it?
It would have done, yes. But at the time, we were just starting to learn with the cars how to get them to launch hard. And throughout that particular event, the car was wheeling really good. And when that particular run, when it went onto the bumper, the air was really good. Obviously, the DA was good and the barometer. And obviously, so it was making some power. So on that particular run, it just came up so quick. And I'd never experienced a wheelie quite like that one. And it went onto the bumper, and I just had to lift. And it came down pretty hard, dented the headers and stuff. But that was about it, really. So after that, then we realised we've got to go to the wheelie bar, and things sort of just progressed from there, really.
Yeah, but the wheelie bar appeared the following day.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, as you know, as Carl, we sort of don't rest. So if something needs to be done, we do it straight away. We just hit it, and that was it, really.
So when we're talking about wheelies, are they intentional? Do you actually dial in a wheelie into your run?
No, well, nowadays we need a wheelie for our cars to perform, because our cars are, because they're stock eliminator engines, which are restrictor engines basically. They don't have much horsepower, so we have to we run a lot of rear gear, and for them to really run quick, we rely on a really good 60 foot. So we have to get a lot of weight transfer. So basically now, when the higher they go, the better they 60 foot, and it shows on the time slip. So it is, as much of a show, it's also a tuning aid that we do need the cars to wheelie.
Perhaps Dan or Nick would like to explain, as in very simple terms, how and why those wheels lift like they do in a stock car.
Yeah, okay. Well, with our cars, for example, the front suspension, we have a lot of travel in the front suspension. We basically, when the car's sat, it's sat near enough on the bump stops on the front to give us all that length of the shock and to give us plenty of inertia to weight transfer. And because we run a 9-inch tyre, we do need to get good weight transfer. So basically, when the car launches, it's got all that front travel, which is around about 5 to 6 inches of travel. Car comes up, and then it just sort of just drives out and lands really nice with some good SantaPod shocks, which are a double adjustable shock.
How do you learn to control a wheelie? Because your instant gut feeling is like the cars come up, you go, oh no, I've got to bring it back down to earth.
Don't worry, Colin, it's something you're never going to have to worry about, Tubby.
My car's a Williams Brothers car. It will lift the front, don't you worry.
Will he be able to lift the wheels at any point?
Well, I don't know, mate. I don't know. But to say, how do you learn how to do a wheelie? Because your natural reaction is to lift off the front because the front ends come up. But you guys just keep your throttle buried, really, and it brings the cars down softer. But how do you learn? Is it just experience? Is it trial and error? How do you do it?
No, you get a really good feel for the car. I think Nick said earlier, you can feel it through the seat of the car. It's just a feeling that you get when the car loads up. You can feel it load up onto the wheelie bar, and obviously we shift first to second so quickly, and confidence as well, because we run, like I said before, SantaPod shocks, and it just comes down. You hardly feel it now. It just lands, and you don't even know you're coming back down top of it, other than you can see the track again. So it's just confidence and trusting the car.
And getting it wrong a few times.
Yeah, and getting it wrong a few times, which we've learned over the years. Turning left, turning right. It just takes time.
I've got to say, guys, I remember back in the 70s, I was street racing and also had a street modified. And the person remained nameless, I'm going to mention, but they let me drive their pro stock car to try it out. It lifted off. Not that, as you know, in those days, it didn't lift that high at all. But God almighty, I remember at the shock, I suddenly couldn't see the track properly. And I found that a very strange experience. But I remember it came down with a bump. But that was back in the mid to early 70s. And it wasn't quite so elaborate in its suspension systems then anyway.
Passenger ride for you soon then, Keith?
Yeah, would be cool. Would be good, yeah. That was
do
it. I need to look at the sky again in the car and know what a proper car does.
Proper car, one with doors.
Proper car. Okay, so we've already started.
No, I'm going to stop.
Now then, Nick Good, your dragster doesn't wheelie, but having said that, literally every single launch that I've seen your car do, you are using that wheelie bar to full effect. And your front wheels do carry the 60 foot quite well, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah, we can tell by the 60 foot times whether that's actually carried past, the front wheels are carried past the beams. We're an aluminium engine in the back, all aluminium block. So we rely on weight transfer also to get maximum traction. So it's a bit of a balancing act really between the wheelie bar, and we can adjust how hard that hits by the amount of weight that we're putting in front of the car, and depending on the track we'll adjust the weight in the front of the car. If you hit the wheelie bar too hard, you can unload the back tyres. Yeah, if you're not really pushing on the wheelie bar gently and consistently, you won't get the maximum traction. And we can see from the data logger that we're getting wheel spin in that 60 foot stretch.
Can I ask, when you say you're adding weight to the car, obviously people at home might not have seen the Dragster before. They're envisioning you putting a load of dumbbells in the front. I'm sure there's a more scientific or more mechanical way of doing it. How would you add weight to a Dragster?
Yeah, we've got some brackets right in the very nose of the car, and we bolt different plates I think they're sort of 1/2 inch thick plates, and we can stack them up, and we can add sort of up to 40 pounds of weight. Just a certain amount of weight in the front will make the car work really well, and just give us that consistency.
Nick Good, sorry, going to stick with Nick Good just on this one just for a second. You run I think is it called a split rail dragster, where basically the dragster is longer than your race transporter, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. All 3 cars are split in the middle. Andy Robinson, he designed some joiners, and I first saw them on Steve Johnson's dragster when he had the Motor Mouse dragster, and yeah, just for convenience really. And we can actually get 2 cars in the transporter instead of 1, so yeah.
Quite interesting, Nick, as you said that, and you said we got all of our cars are split cars. The one on the left, as we look at it, fell down.
I know.
Obviously, the cars come out in sympathy.
They obviously don't like it.
Oh dear. So basically, a little bit simpler for you. You can get 2 dragsters in 1 lorry. But the Williams brothers, one thing that we haven't really brought in yet, we know Nick Good has basically got 3 dragsters that are ready to go. But the team for you guys, it's not just you two. There's quite. Who else is in the team these days?
We've got Guy King with his Chevelle, and soon to have another Chevelle out to his stable of cars. He'll be racing with us. We're putting him something together at the minute. And then obviously there's Ollie with the Pontiac that we built for him a few years ago. And then myself and Dan, and obviously Wally.
Wally wants to get in.
Wally wants to be in. And then myself and Dan, we're usually running 1 car. And obviously now we've got the 55 Chevy to come out.
Nick, is it not? Have you not left someone out of your team? There's another guy that sort of, is it around your part of your whole team nowadays, whether you like it or not? And he's probably facing you at the moment. Cannot leave out Mr. Theobald. He sees himself as a member of Williams Brothers Racing.
He just wants a parking space in the pits.
I didn't want to encourage him, Keith. His car is a race car that occasionally goes on the street.
Well, we like race cars that occasionally go on the street. We like race cars that go on the street more and more. And we'll talk about street racing a little bit later on.
Good old Bruce. Good old Bruce. Now, I'm going to go back to something that Nick Good said. And Luke, Nick was talking about unloading tyres. The only unloading that you and I have really done is taken them off the FedEx van when they've arrived.
You say that. I've got 8 tyres arriving this week. The FedEx man's going to hate me. I do like the idea though, because as Nick says, for storage and transportation, it's a whole lot better. My trailer's about 28 foot long. It takes up a massive space in the unit. When I want to get the dragster out, I've got to pull the trailer so far out of the unit to be able to get it. And also, it's a real pain in the bum trying to unload.
But there's a funny story actually about getting long cars in short trailers. And I think that was when we imported Dave's car, the first one to come over. And I'd got my Ford Cargo at the time. And I went down with Rick Cook to pick the car up and pulled up at the warehouse and met the guy who was sort of looking after the things in the warehouse. And we could see the car sit there, the dragster sit there. And he put cones around it. And he said, yeah, this is your car. He said, I'll pump the tyres up. The slicks had gone down. Really looked after it. He didn't, because the front of the car was slow, he didn't want anyone reversing over or anything. So me and Rick said, thank you very much. And first thing we did was take the body panels off. We took the tape measure out, got the hacksaw out, and then proceeded to hacksaw the car clean in 2, exactly where we were going to put the joiners. And the guy's face just dropped. He thought, what have I been doing for the last 4 days looking after this car? Put the 2 halves in the back of the car and then took it back to the workshop. So
I like that.
Yeah.
So I can retrospectively now cut the front of my car off. I mean,
you can indeed.
Nice. That's good to know. I shall look into that. Well, heck,
yeah, come and have a
like
look at the pits. You know, there's numerous different ways of doing the job, but yeah, it's good.
Now, Luke, I think it's time we better ask Nick about that check behind him there, don't you?
It's a nice check, isn't it? I've always envisaged, I mean, if I ever won one of them, I'd want to be carrying that into the bank and just going, I want to cash this. The Door Slammers check, guys. How much fun was that event, and how much fun was winning that big check?
It wasn't fun.
I didn't ask you, Keith. You're the man giving the money away.
You know, it was Door Slammers event anyway. The first one was absolutely awesome. We were obviously keen as a business to support it and sponsor it. And first year we had a good time of it. I think we went a few rounds and what have you. And then 2019, obviously we had it was testing on the Friday, and then Saturday there was a few runs in the morning first thing, if memory serves me right, and then a full rain out. And I remember speaking with various people and saying, well, what are we going to do? And I think it was Keith, he said, well, I think we'll just do a double bubble for Sunday. As long as people have entered for both days, they've got a chance of winning 10,000, you know. So I think everybody was really excited about that. We certainly were. Apart from Keith, yeah. So we went into it. We were running the Chevelle, and round one, kind of paired up, and I was looking and thinking, oh man, I think we're going to get Colin Morris. So I shouted out to Lorne, crew guy, and said, after £50 ready, I think we've got Colin. And but we went through. It was a great race, and a few more rounds after that. I think we had a couple of.
The best race was
Pateman.
Yeah, that was a brilliant race.
That was a tough one. Yeah, we certainly did. I think we had.
Apart from the final,
two runs where we either had a red against us or whatever, but some tough races. I mean, again, like Dan said, Brian Pateman, you just expect to get put on the trailer. You know, they're seasoned racers that are really, really good. And then, of course, the final, I think it was about 1 minute to 9. There was no time to cool the car down. It was literally just put fuel in it and straight back up and race. And to race Lee Huxley again, is always a challenge. It always brings your A game. I think both of us were a bit lazy on the light, let's say. But yeah, the Chevelle held him off, and we won the 10 grand, which was just absolutely fantastic. You know.
There's a very interesting story with the Door Slammers. You remember the old Door Slammers, and certainly Nick Good will definitely remember it. I kind of stopped the old Door Slammers when I bought SantaPod because it began to actually reduce in numbers. It was always bad weather, and I kind of stopped it because it wasn't working. But always in the back of my mind, that was an event I wanted to reinstate. When I first started talking about it to all the staff, the people who were into drag racing in the company, and believe it or not everybody is, but James Foster, Darren Prentice, myself, Neil Saunders, who were really into their racing, all thought it was great. But some of the other staff, when I said I was going to put up £75,000 prize money for the first year, you know, and we knew it wouldn't be a big spectator event, they thought I'd actually lost the plot. It was definitely going to be an event for the racers, that the racers would grow it naturally. And that's exactly what happened. And I think, had we have not had this year cancelled, and guess what, the weather was absolutely fantastic, would have been a brilliant Door Slammers, and it still remains my favourite event. I do remember Jimmy Ullen when he won in 2018. 18, you're right, 2018. He won and he stood on the stage, and I think might have been Luke up there, could have been myself, said, you know, so what was the appeal of the Door Slammers, Jimmy? And Jimmy said, well, what I really enjoyed was taking £10,000 off for you, Keith. And I sort of had a big wry smile, and I said, well, what I really enjoyed, Jimmy, is it was the first time we did online betting, and I won £12,500 on you. So, I think it's a great event. It's a racers event, and sorry for those who don't have cars with doors, Nick.
Well, I was going to touch on that because obviously Nick's sitting there and he's hearing of all these big money checks and stuff like that. And the other week we had Bring Back the Cannonball, but where's the Dragster big money shootout?
We did the Green Light Nationals. We had a pro shootout. There was only 5 cars there, but I ended up winning it. We just did it as a bit of a test and tune weekend, really, and that was the best paying test and tune weekend I think I've ever had. It wasn't anything like the £10,000, but yeah, I think a top Dragster, same as a top Door Slammer. All for
Well,
it.
let's not rule it out, Nick. We won't rule it out, that's for sure.
Oh, that sounds good.
I'm going to follow on from going back to the Williams brothers on this one, and Nick Good, hold that thought on Dragster racing just for a sec. But sort of Dan and Nick, door slammers, major success. You go home, you get yourself sorted out for 3 days, back up to the track again, and then main event. Winner's Circle once again. I mean, that was pretty much a dream month for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, I hope we can repeat it, but I'm not sure we will. You know, everything just kind of aligned, and the cars were.
Chevelle was running awesome, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So consistent.
I think over a period of about 10 runs, obviously some of the races you're pedaling it, so your timing doesn't apply. But just looking back at the timing slips, it was either 10 or 12 runs or something. The car was within 300 or 400, and so to ask that of a door car especially, but over 2 weekends, kind of credits how good they can work. You know, just a bit of perseverance and setting up.
Yeah. And of course, in the final, you're up against Ollie, your teammate. Did you deliberately nobble his gearbox so you could take the win?
There was no team orders.
We've already touched on that check behind you, but as last week, you're one of the proud people, the proud few that have got a Wally, and it's just behind you, and that's from your exploits over to America. Can you tell us what that was for?
There's the Wally.
Never rest.
That was the Edelbrock Never Rest Performer of the Race Award. We got awarded that at the US Nationals. Just kind of for our efforts with the racing and the travelling and everything else we put in there. Yeah, so it was just, I think, an award just to acknowledge what we were doing, really.
If you left the car out there now, specifically for racing in America?
Well, my Nova's out there at the moment. I was fortunate enough to I raced the Division 2 race earlier on in the year, in the end of January, and then I did the Baby Gators, which was fantastic. And we actually at the race at Orlando, the NHRA Division 2 race, I qualified number 1 in stock, which was quite an achievement.
Yeah.
And then at the Baby Gators, I qualified number 2. So we've been fortunate to actually have turned the wheel this year. But yeah, my car is currently out there, and I'm sort of hoping to leave it out there for probably another year. But we'll see how things go, really.
Nice. And Nick Good, have you done any racing outside of the UK?
It's just finding the time. You know, people tell me Hockenheim, you need a week. Get there to race and get back. So that's just something. It's tight enough getting, finding the time to get to SantaPod.
That's it. You keep mentioning, obviously, business is really forefront of your operation. Are you at the moment furloughed from work? Or are you still working? What do you do?
We're self-employed. I'm self-employed. We've got a windscreen repair business. We do contract work. And although we got contracts doing, looking after supermarket home delivery vehicles, Tesco, Sainsbury's, companies that were really busy during that period, there were no other vehicles on the road to flick the stones up to chip the screens. So, although we were working, it was pretty thin for a while.
He's the only man that has got a bag of gravel in the cab of his vehicle. He throws it out the windscreen.
Throwing them out the window.
No, catapult, drive-by.
That's it.
No.
Oh dear. Talking of transportation, obviously that's a very important part of getting vehicles to the track. Nick, Good. We've already spoken about the split rail, and obviously Dan and Nick, SantaPod quite near for you. But some of the stories of you guys moving around the USA have been quite, shall we say, long distance. And not only that, Dan, you don't like Nick's driving, do you?
I'm a terrible passenger, real bad. I think, did I do most of the driving? Or did
You usually do most.
Yeah, I did the driving because I just.
That's tactical. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Same as Nick. I'll be really bad when we're driving, and then go, "Oh, you take over then."
No. Well, Dan does most of the driving. So when we first went to the States, we brought ourselves a trailer, but we were renting a truck, and Dan would always drive that. So in a brand spanking new F250. Massive diesel, and he'd sit there and he'd drive 10 hours straight, no problem. And then while we were down in Florida last year, I thought, well, we've got to save some money. So I thought I'll buy a truck. And we didn't have the budget to go and buy a £60,000 F250. So I said, well, I'll buy us a Chevy, an older one. So I found a Chevy 3500 Julie with a big block and a manual. He says, the first time I picked him up in it, he said, bloody hell, this thing's trying to kill me, and chucked me out the window. So I have to do most of the driving, but it's a bit temperamental. You hit the brakes and it pulls to the right, and it's not the best uphill.
Oh, not only that, it's got red velour upholstery.
It is a serial killer.
And not only that, Nick, but I mean, I know you guys are quite, shall we say, you think on your feet straight away. It's getting a bit hot in there as well, actually. So you've literally stripped the car of the road tide, haven't you?
Yeah, we stopped at a hotel and for the night, and the following morning it was getting warm. So we pulled the aircon rad off to try and get more air through the radiator and through the engine. It didn't work. We just absolutely sweltered inside for the next 300 miles or something. So we rebuilt it that night.
Oh, crazy. Nick, good. Any amusing stories of actually trying to get to the track as such, or have you been pretty normal?
We're not far from the pod, so it's about an hour and a half, so it's all been pretty straightforward, really. Had a few close ones. Had a puncture just as we pulled into the track, into the SantaPod ones on the truck. It is a fear, though. It is a fear that, when you've got people sitting at the track waiting to race and they're going for a championship, the pressure to get the car there in one piece is, that's quite immense, really. So, but fortunately, we haven't let anyone down yet.
Yeah, talking of having fear, Nick. So we were out once. We were going from Bowling Green up to Indy for the US Nationals, and we're driving along, and we had Ollie following us, and we're driving him, and he's beeping and flashing his lights. What's he looking at? Anyway, Dan catches it in the mirror. Our trailer wheel is smoking real bad, like the thing's on fire. So we pull up at the side of the road, and we've
Nothing left of the wheel bearing.
Wheel bearing is just disintegrated. So
wow.
And we pull up into this parking lot area where there's a service station, and there's a couple of strange-looking people around there. Kind of zombie apocalyptic effect. So we thought, we're okay. We'll get a wheel bearing sorted. And then this guy, another racer, he comes down and he says, I saw you as I was going over the freeway. He said, and it took me sort of 5 miles to realise, shit, that's those guys from England. So he turns around, he comes down, he says, look, you can't stay here. Like, if you're here after dark, you're going to get mugged and shot. So, as you can imagine, we're thinking, what are we going to do? And anyway, they sorted out the wheel bearing, didn't they? And we were fitting this thing, but as it was honestly getting dark, it was like people coming out of their homes and they were going to kill you. It was horrendous. It was the worst situation I think we've ever been.
Yeah.
Well, each week we've got to ask all of our guests who their favourite idols are. And Nick, good, you've been in drag racing for, well, we said at least 12 years. So who are your idols in racing?
It tends to be more of a respect thing and admiration of what people have achieved. But as far as heroes go, I mean, my dad was taking me to the track at sort of early 70s, and those, when you're young, you're absolutely blown away by what, the top fuel cars of the time. So, and there are certain cars that stick in your mind. Liam Churchill, he had the Sting, funny car, and Dennis Priddle, I remember at the time, he had the Avenger. So those two guys, safety and that has moved on. But when you look at the times and speeds they were running, and you then look at the cars now and you think, wow, they really were heroes.
Well, there's some real good names that we certainly know, and certainly some heroes of mine as well. Williams Bros, Dan, Nick, who are your heroes in drag racing?
Mine would be probably the likes of Bill Grumpy Jenkins and Warren Johnson, and those kind of guys who did like the original Super Stock days, and obviously Pro Stock with Warren Johnson.
And what about you, Nick?
People that are doing things that have never been done. Obviously, the likes of John Force winning championship after championship, and just I don't think there's any single person really, but I guess idols, probably maybe even our dad. You know, he used to race, or not race, but run what you brung and building cars and all of that, which has brought me and Dan into doing what we do now with the racing and with the business and so on and so forth. So it's probably his doing and where we got that bug, I suppose, from early hot rod days when we were building hot rods with Dad and doing run what you brung and lifestyle racing to doing what we're doing now and still building some hot rods along the way.
That is a very key point, actually, because obviously Keith Pops, as we know him, is on the start line for every single one of your runs. If he's in the same country, put it that way. I know he didn't go to all the American events, but Keith is such a huge support mechanism for you, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we wouldn't be able to do what we've done, a lot of it, without Mum and Dad, and obviously working our butts off as well. Yeah, I would agree with that for sure.
Now, we always look at favourite classes. We know, Nick Good, you're currently in Super Pro ET. Would you ever move to another class, or is there another class that you look at that you like, or your favourite class?
It's all based on cost, really. Obviously, top methanol dragster, possibly top fill, but you know, we don't put a lot of money into the race. And in the early days, we had some cracking sponsorship deals, and we've still got an excellent deal with Lucas Oil at the moment, and they've been fantastic to us. And you know, before I started racing the cars, the initial intention going back many years was to get into to race bikes. But my brother, he did circuit racing on bikes, and I remember he had a real bad accident, and I had a bad accident on the road as well, and I was sort of virtually laid up for 6 months. And with the business being self-employed, we thought that's perhaps not the best, most sensible route to go down.
Roll cages are your friend.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And also, you know, I was into the VWs in a fairly big way, built quite a few show cars. And so that was another option, you know, possibly to go down that route.
Nice.
Okay, so continued success with what basically Nick Good would do within his budget there. But talking of success, Dan and Nick, I pretty much know any other class that you'd want to race in is not really on the radar. So success has been really, really important for you guys. You've had some cracking race results, haven't you, over the years? Just tell us some of your favourites.
I think, obviously, as we spoke about earlier, the Door Slam was last year. But also the year before, when we were in the States, so 2018, we'd been out and done a few meetings. And then we went to the Dutch Classic, which is typically a big sportsman race, big super stock race in Pennsylvania up in the northeast. It was, that was a good one. We actually won this one there. The set doesn't fall apart. So we won class with a Camaro at that event, which was a brilliant achievement. Really pleased. The car was going really fast.
Well, it's not only that. I mean, Dan, you've gone to Sweden and you've done well over there.
Yeah, I won I think it was the Summer Nationals in 2000. I believe it's 2016 or 15. And I had 3 runner-ups there as well at the RS races at Tjerp. So that was really good.
You've done a lot of super stock racing, obviously, in the USA and over in Scandinavia. It's most recently just come over to the UK. Where do you see that class growing?
Well, we're really excited because we feel that stock, super stock, the Swedes coming over would be awesome. And I think we'll get a lot of the guys from Sweden will come over because obviously the world-class facility with SantaPod, the track is phenomenal, as good as anything anywhere. And I think it would just be a really good spectacle to see just all sorts of combination of cars, NHRA legal cars running now. I think it'll be awesome. It will really go down well. So, yeah, looking forward to that, hopefully for next year.
Nice. Is there any other classes you'd ever run in? Obviously, we know Pro ET, we know Super Stock.
Yeah, I really like Comp Eliminator because it's kind of like stock and super stock where it's index racing based on performance. And that is really appealing. I've always had this idea of like a high-winding, really small block Chevy, 10,000 RPM, that kind of thing. That would really be quite appealing. Or pro stock, but I mean that's just different. That's a different level.
That's the goal then. That's the pipe dream.
Yeah.
So you like your normally aspirated screaming motors?
Absolutely, yeah. Just high winding engines. I mean, all our stuff turns over 8,000 RPM, and it's just awesome. You know, especially a small block as well, where some of these super stock cars they'll turn at 9,000-10,000 RPM. It's just awesome. So yeah, that's for me.
Well, we all know about our team's on-track activities, but let's talk about what they drive on the road when they're away from the track. Nick Good, come on, what's your car history and what are you currently driving on the road?
So out there at the moment, I've got my VW Beetle 2000, which I've had from new. The only new car I've ever bought in my life, and I've still got it. Got a Scooby Estate for hauling stuff around in. I've got my two works vans, but the one I get the most fun from, I've got a little Porsche 356 replica speedster, and spent a lot of time on that, getting that together. That's real good fun. It's got a real sweet motor in it. We're halfway through building a 356A replica coupe in Outlaw style. So yeah, got a lot of good parts to go in that, and hopefully this time next year that'll probably be on the road.
I'm seeing you in a whole new light now, Nick. Who never
I'm
heard
big
you?
into the VWs. Well, I wouldn't say cool, but yeah, I've been into the VWs since my early 20s. Cal Look scene, and yeah, it goes back way back into early Bug Jam years. So yeah, it's good.
So you need to don your race suit and come and do a VW DRC round at Bug Jam.
Well, yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to get these 356s on the track. You know, they've both got sweet motors in them, and yeah, sure, have a lot of fun with them.
I'll tell you what, Nick Good has just made it onto Luke Stevenson's Christmas card there, Lucy.
That's it.
Oh, brilliant. Now then, obviously, Dan and Nick, come on, road cars, let's hear it. What you're currently driving and what's been your favourite?
Well, I don't know if I should really say, but being a Chevy man and all that, but I drive a Ford F-150.
Well, yeah, okay, fair enough.
At the minute, Cole, what am I driving? Well, I've got my Julie, my F350, but that can be challenging at times where we're based on the country roads, a little bit wide. So I've been using the 34 Coupe. That's what I've been driving daily in the rain, wind, and sun, of course. I've been using that. So that's me at the minute. No other fancy road cars at present.
Yeah, but that is one stunning little hot rod, and I'm sure the viewers are going to love seeing the pictures of that. But what's been your favourite cars over the years that you have actually owned?
I've had some good kind of European stuff. I had a couple of RS4s. They were very good fun. Expensive to run, but very, very good fun.
Yeah, especially taking Simon Goff over to Hockenheim. That wasn't cheap, was it?
It wasn't cheap for him, no. I think we were filling up every hour and a half, but we had to get him back. So I think I left at 10 o'clock at night and we arrived at Hockenheim track at like 5:15 in the morning. So obviously we went at the legal speed limits as with the exception of the Autobahn. We left the fuel station and Simon nodded off. And I woke him back up an hour and a half later and he said, "Nick, why haven't we got anywhere?" I said, "We have. We need to fill up again." So we filled up again and we were straight onto an Autobahn. And typical Simon, he nodded off again. But he did wake up to this kind of absolute roaring V8 and he sort of murmured, "I think, how fast are we going?" I said, "About 185, Simon." And he had to say, "Oh, shit," and just back to sleep again. So, but that was on the Autobahn, so we were okay to do that. I hope.
Doing those speeds on the road, how does that compare to, say, driving your race car on the drag strip?
The Audi it was kind of an easy car, you know. It felt a little bit light, but just have your wits about it. That's all. Otherwise, I drive very sensibly all the time.
Obviously, but that's fully legal in Germany, so it's allowed.
Exactly. That's the only opportunity.
But you do automatically feel bad. You're like, yeah, I went really fast, and then you're like, actually, no, it's legal. It's good. Nick, good. If you weren't doing drag racing, what other hobbies would you have?
We've got horses at the back of the house. We've got some paddocks. They take some looking after. Well, the last 3 months I've been quite getting into my garden, actually, which probably sounds a bit sad, but...
You're not going to look forward to going back to work then?
Well, that's sort of picking up now anyway. It's just a bit strange trying to get back into that flat out, full work mode. I think it's going to take some adjusting for an awful lot of people,
That's it.
We'll see.
This is where I thought I knew the Williams brothers, but I honestly don't know what the guys are going to answer to that question. So, Dan and Nick, if you weren't drag racing and you weren't building hot rods, what would you do?
I don't know. I really don't know. It'd be something to do with something motorised anyway, for sure.
Lawnmower racing.
Yeah,
lawnmower racing.
Wheel standing.
Wheel standing lawnmowers. We did that, didn't we?
We did that. That was good fun.
Yeah, well, we got the video clip of that. No doubt that's going to make the show as well.
Well, every week we obviously have to have the mug off. I'm sure the boss of the mug off, Keith, will come and join us. There he is, pops.
Yeah. Well, I've been listening to the show today, and I've tried not to interfere too much. But both Nick Good and yourself, Luke, keep referring to Bug Jam, Volkswagens, and I know for you it's quite dear to your heart. So I thought, in celebration of Bug Jam and all its years and the Volkswagen racing that both of you so into, I would kind of produce a very nice looking Bug Jam mug.
Yes.
Hey, right, over to our guest then, Nick Good. Let's see what you got for the mug off.
I race for my country. We race in Super Pro against many foreigners. We have them from Germany, Switzerland, Scandinavia. But this is who we do it for.
Darryl Bradford lookalike.
Yeah.
It's a Darryl Bradford mug. Hey. Okay then, the Williams brothers. Come on then, guys. Let's see what you bring into the party.
It's got to be US Nationals mug from last year for me.
Oh, that's class. I like that. And of course, Nick.
Well, I haven't really got anything that special when it comes to a mug. I drink coffee anyway, but just a plain coffee mug. So I just brought on my SantaPod cup with the Chevelle on it.
Always a good cup.
Well, that's what I thought, Keith.
The winner.
Absolutely. Winningest team car we've got. So that's my one for this one.
Cool.
Okay, well, since I'm never going to win this mug off, I figured I'd just send a message home to the wife and say, I am.
I'll tell you what, I think that could be a winner. You never know. This week's mug for me, and this is going down memory lane, actually. Obviously, Dan and Nick are going to remember this car, but remember that one.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Like it, Carl.
Is that an old school Bruce?
Well, you know what? I've got to say, Dan is a very special mug, that is. When you look at someone who's won something in America and they've got the mug to prove it, he's probably got the T-shirt as well. No, all good, all very good mugs, but I think it goes to Dan Williams.
Okay, so yeah, another win for Williams Brothers Racing.
I'm not giving them any money for this win whatsoever.
Well, Colin, I think it's been a really good show. But as all good shows, they have to come to an end. Nick Good, thank you very much for joining us and a great insight to you. And now I know that you're a VW man, I'm going to come round and drink beer with you at the race.
You're more than welcome anytime. But now, thanks for having us on. That's been great. And yeah, we'll see you at the track soon, I'm sure.
And to Dan and Nick, well, guys, I know I'm around your place a heck of a lot, and we'll pack this equipment away. There's still probably a little bit of daylight left this evening, so you never know. Let's go out for a cruise again. But in the meantime, guys, thanks ever so much indeed for being on the Santa podcast. Great stories. Wish we could dig deeper, but for the time being, that was pretty great. So thanks ever so much indeed.
Thanks for having us, guys.
Yeah, thanks ever so much. We'll see you soon at the track.
See you at the track.
Now, obviously, first of all, www.santapod.com. Go and get your merchandise. Go and get your jumpers, your T-shirts. Support SantaPod Raceway. And hopefully we'll be back racing, because don't forget, we want to be racing. hit subscribe, and see you next week. What are you going to say, Colin?
Yeah, Luke, it's been a fantastic Santa podcast once again, and we can't wait to find out who the guests are going to be on our next show. So keep tuning in, folks. Keep messaging us. Keep letting us know who you want to see on the show. We'll see you soon. All the best. Take it steady.